What is up, everybody? My name is Omega Pro, and this is the New Game Plus podcast. This is still in beta form. As you guys can see, there's been a huge overhaul to all the graphics and everything like that. So I hope you guys will be enjoying this new way that we're doing this. We're doing this offline, so that way it can be the best possible product for you guys. We can, edit things out. Like if a cat steals our, I don't know, well, I don't know what I was gonna say, but these are the usual hosts. So for hopefully 99% of the podcast, you'll be seeing all three of our pretty faces, and then if we have a guest or somebody else, we'll change up the little overlay, and you guys will see the other person. But without further ado, let's get to the introductions. Of course, my name is Omega Pro, the host with the most, and we've also got in the bottom left corner, yeah, sure, we have the TheOmniPuss, aka the God.
Indeed. Hi guys. I guess I didn't make it to the other, the beta one because I was on vacations, but glad to be here for this one and for the future ones as well, obviously.
All right, and admittedly a much less exciting fashion.
Rude. Yo.
I mean, the star of the show, zZToastie.
Hello, everyone. Y'all know me, but y'all don't want to know me.
All right.
Especially this one, Rude.
That is the truth. All right, but anyway, as you guys can see, we've got some of what I believed to be anyway the best topics right along the bottom of the screen there. So that's what you guys can look forward to. If we haven't talked about that yet, then that means it's coming up. They're in chronological order between when we're going to talk about them. Obviously, there will be topics in between each of those topics that we talk about. But enough of the introductions. Let's get on with it. First topic. 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second. Now, the reason why I thought of this topic in particular was because I've been playing The Last of Us Remastered. And with The Last of Us Remastered, obviously one of the big things about it in comparison to the PS3 version was the fact that it was in full 1080p and running at 60 frames per second. Now, what was also interesting though was that if you lock the game at 30 frames per second, the game actually looks substantially better, especially in the lighting and the shadow quality in general. Those were probably the things that stood out most to me when I saw the differences. So I guess really what I wanted to talk about was, where do you stand on this whole 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second?
I mean, personally, I am definitely an advocate for the 60 frames per second thing. I mean, you can always say it depends on the game. Obviously, a more tactical game, something like an well, maybe not an RTS, but your regular strategy game perhaps doesn't need as much of a smooth gameplay.
Right, or like a turn-based RPG or something, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, when you're dealing with certain genres like, basically anything that's fast paced, and The Last of Us sort of falls in the middle, honestly, because I mean, it's not super fast paced. You have games like fighting games, for example, or shooters where you need the smooth gameplay. The Last of Us is sort of in between, but regardless, I mean, I still haven't played the remastered version or anything, but I mean, if I was in your scenario, I would go for the 60 frames per second any day, especially because I mean the difference, as you said, is mainly in the shadows. I mean, I can deal with losing some resolution there, honestly, over twice the frame rate, which just makes a huge difference overall. And because and I mean, going a little bit off topic, when you're dealing with something like films, for example, you could argue it doesn't affect you as much since you're just watching the thing. But with video games, it actually affects the way you play and how the gameplay feels. So, I mean, I'll take a higher frame rate any day for sure.
All right, Toasty?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Like, I always want 60 FPS, no matter what, usually. Even if it's like a game like Mario or whatever, I always want 60 FPS because it just feels the best. I would rather have 60 FPS than have better graphical fidelity. If there was a like selection in all games to like switch to 60 FPS instead of, and then it would take away some of the graphical fidelity, I'd honestly take it any day. Like, because whenever there's a game that's being announced for a new system or whatever, and they say it's 1080p 30 FPS or whatever, I dread that, because if if there's not going to be 60 FPS, then what's really the point? I'm not going to enjoy the feel of the game that much if it's not 60 FPS. And like Destiny is one of those that, like, I just really wonder why they would obviously choose to go 1080p and then not include 60 FPS. Like, especially in shooters and stuff like that, like third person shooters, first person shooters, fighting games, especially fighting games. It is a must for me to have 60 FPS, or I just can't play the fighting game. It really changes the entire way that I play, and I cannot play without 60 FPS. I don't know if it's
Right.
just me being on PC for too long.
I
It
don't
just
know.
bothers
My
me.
opinions on it is obviously 60 FPS has its advantages, and given the choice between either 30 or 60, I'll take 60 any day. But Omni brought up a point where FPS games and fighting games need to be 60. While I agree, fighting games have to be 60 frames per second. I don't even think there's room for argument there. You can make the game look like dog shit if you need to. Give me 60 frames per second on this fighting game. First person shooters, on the other hand, can be debatable. I agree that most FPSs, in fact, I'd say all of them, can benefit from being 60 FPS. But playing a game like Halo, which is locked at 30, I honestly 60 FPS again would help the games feel tremendously. But at the same time, I don't really have too much of an issue. I know that there are a lot of people that when they play a game in 30 FPS, they just see nothing but what's wrong with the game, that how it could be so much better with 60. For me personally, I really don't care between the two. Obviously, again, I'd prefer 60 FPS. However, um playing a lot of games, especially console games, like Infamous The Second Son, not The Second Son, just Second Son, but playing Infamous at 30, I couldn't really I didn't really give a shit. You know, I was playing the game, I was having a blast, the game was still fun. It's not like people make it out to be as if like 60 FPS makes your game sort of better somehow. That's not the case. As long as the game is fun to me and it has, you know, whatever it's trying to do and it does it well, I could give a shit if it's 30 FPS or 60 FPS, as long as it's not, you know, dipping frames or anything like that. Again, I will agree that 60 FPS is the way to go for games in general. There is a huge difference playing The Last of Us, especially on the 60 FPS. I wouldn't go back to the 30 FPS. It is nice to lock it at 30 FPS every once in a while and see like this gorgeous view with all the dynamic shadows and lighting and stuff. It is a really nice, it's a nice thing to look at, to be honest. But at the same time, just playing the game in general, 60 FPS is the only way to go.
Yeah, I think you also brought up an interesting part, which is the when games dip in frame rate.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I will take any day locked 30 frames per second over, you know, something that's constantly going up and down. I mean, unless you know, I guess if it's in between 50 and 60, you sort of don't notice it. But I mean, anything below that, if it's constantly changing, it's way more jarring than just stuck at a 30. And I mean, you obviously also mentioned the fact that console games aren't as noticeable. And I mean, I don't know if that's just because, I mean, at least personally, you know, when I'm playing on my PC, I have my monitor way more close than when I'm playing on my couch, you know, and I'm on my TV. So maybe I just don't notice it as much. But I mean, I do think that mainly for PC, I definitely prefer and kind of need the 60 frames per second thing. On consoles, I can be a little more forgiving. And at the end of the day, it also comes down to being used to it or not. Because I mean, although as some people did complain, you know, about the frame rate in The Last of Us, because I mean, it's sort of struggled a little bit to keep at 30 frames per second, since you know it was pushing the PS3's boundaries. I mean, obviously, it still got over hundreds of Game of the Year awards. So I mean, it didn't substantially take away from the game. It's only when people are now comparing it to the 60 frames per second version that you know, you can really tell a big difference. And ultimately, as much as I defend 60 frames per second, I do think that nowadays there is perhaps too much of a focus on that whole thing. And because, you know, a lot of people are also using it obviously for arguments for the console wars,
Right.
you know, saying which version has the better resolution and the better frame rate. And even then, I do think the frame rate matters more than the resolution, because I mean, the resolution is such a small difference usually. But regardless, I mean, I think it's an important discussion to have, because I think pretty much all games should push for 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
Some people would even argue beyond. But I mean, it's not like a topic that I think needs to you know, it shouldn't a game shouldn't be brought down just because it isn't at 60 frames per second necessarily.
Right, exactly. What made me think about this was I was on the on some forums. I think it may have been like Reddit or something, and people were like bashing games because they were locked at 30 or whatever, because they weren't 60 frames per second, what have you. And to me it's just like, why is that even an argument? Like what actually matters about that? 60 FPS, like I said, I will agree, does improve the feel of the game overall. I think Infamous would have been such a better game, honestly, if it did have the 60 FPS, watching all that stuff go down so fluidly. But with that being said, even though that game was 30 FPS, even though the original Last of Us was 30 FPS, even though most games we've played on the last generation of consoles were 30 FPS, we still enjoyed them nonetheless. And it is more difficult for people like us that are on both ends, I guess, of the spectrum, where at least for me, I know I do heavy console gaming and heavy PC gaming.
Yeah.
So for me, it is a little bit jarring at first when I'm, playing something on my PC and it looks fucking glorious and it's 60 frames per second and my eyeballs are melting out of my face. And then I go to, like, especially going back to the 360 and PS3, like that is some jarring shit.
Yeah.
And then I see that, I'm like, fuck, if this was on my PC, bro, 1080p, 60 frames per second, I'd be coming buckets right now. But at the same time, it's just like, at the end of the day, a few minutes, I'm fucking over it, and I'm just playing the game and I'm having fun. This generation is just so fucking annoying with all these goddamn arguments about this, about that, 60 FPS, 1080p, all this bullshit. I'm a PC gamer, I'm a console gamer. The PC fucking elitists annoy the shit out of me. The people that actually think their console is better than any other console are even more annoying. It's just stupid. Play games. Be a fan of games, not a fan of like a platform, or not a fan of specs or whatever. Just love games. That's all I'm asking.
I don't know about how before you said that Halo, when you go to Halo and like even the 360 or whatever, like Halo 4 or something, like it really doesn't pop into you that it's 30 FPS or anything like that. It doesn't really like jar you that much.
Right.
But
I think
most games today, like, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that's mostly in part due to the fact that I've played Halo for so long. I put so much hours into it, where if I go back to a Halo game, it feels natural to me to play at 30 FPS.
Oh, I mean, like, it's something that's really weird. Like, ever since like 2012, games have started to have that more of a feel that like you don't start to care. It ends up being smooth as hell, and you really don't notice it not being at 60. Like, if I watched gameplay of Infamous Second Son, I would think it's 60.
Right.
Even though it's not. It's like, and Halo 4 is the same thing. Like, the game is actually smoother, which I don't know how they do it. I'm not a programmer, and it just like makes me wonder, how are they making it seem like it's 60 when it actually isn't at 60? So at that point it starts to like not matter to you.
Exactly. That's one of the points I brought up when I was playing Infamous, and even when I reviewed it on my Omega Pro Show channel, I was like, I could not tell that this was not 60. Obviously, if it's side by side and you see 160, 130, you're gonna be like, that's 60, that's 30. It's just that clear. It just looks that much smoother. But if the game is handled well and if the game is developed well enough, you probably won't even care at the end of the day, unless, of course, you have just grown accustomed to 60 FPS, either by playing on PC all the time or what have you, whatever way you've grown accustomed to it. But unless you're, I'd say, just used to all of your games running at 60 FPS, then I don't really see why it's that big of an issue. And even still, to not like a game because it's not 60 FPS, I just think is stupid.
There are some FPS games though that, like, there are a lot of FPS games that differ from others. Like Halo, obviously, if it's 30 or 60, it's hard for you to even really care. Call of Duty, sometimes it really, I guess, wouldn't matter. Like Advanced Warfare, all the stuff running at 60 looks a lot better than, like, let's say Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 3, obviously. It just like looks and it seems like it'll feel a lot better. But then I think about Titanfall. Titanfall was a game that ran at 60. I don't know if it was on everything. I think it ran on 30 on 360 and then 60 on Xbox One, and then on PC it was obviously 60. But the thing about Titanfall was that the game wasn't that great graphically. Like a lot of people thought that Titanfall was really beautiful, but
that looked like a Source engine
Titan-
game.
yeah, Titanfall really, in terms of its texture, in terms of its assets, it did not have a really.
Yeah, I
Wait,
mean,
didn't
similarly-
Titanfall actually use the Source engine? Hold on, I'm
think,
gonna
yeah, it
Google
did.
that.
I think it did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
I mean, what you're mentioning, I mean, it's sort of the same thing as you were saying with like the COD games from the past generation, really. Because I mean, when you compare them to like Battlefield, for example, you know, Battlefield always looked way better, but it was running on 30 on the consoles versus the 60 that COD was running at, and you know, it's just a sacrifice that the devs themselves have to make.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it was the Source engine, by the way.
Huh.
Yeah,
Was not
So-
aware of that.
yeah, and obviously everything on PC is 60,
Or
except
above,
like,
most likely
obviously,
above.
well,
Yeah, I mean, it's
Or-
variable
or-
basically.
or there's that one game that decides that it doesn't want to run at 60 ever and it's locked at 30. I'm looking at you, Full Burst. That's
And
still.
wait, wasn't there a
That's
Need for
extremely
Speed
nice.
game that was locked at
Yeah,
30?
Need for
Oh,
Speed.
come
Locked at 30.
on.
No,
Like, what
it's
the
the worst thing
hell?
ever because they lock the speed of the game to the frame rate. So even if you want it to be at 60, you have to play at double speed if you want to play at 60
Oh man,
frames
that's
per second.
like
Naruto
emulator
was the same
issues.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's the
that's
exact same thing.
that's fucking terrible. Like, you can't have a racing game at 30. Like, when we were talking about like fighting games and FPS games, racing games have to be on there too. Like, that is 60 FPS shit, you know?
Yeah, you know
Wasn't-
another game that really benefited from that, and I mean, actually, now that I think about it, I did play the demo originally on the PS3, but DMC, that game is so
Oh,
much
yeah.
better at 60. You
Oh.
know,
DMC, you feel
yeah,
that
you
like
feel
when
the difference.
Yo, like, for real though, like, I am generally like not a snob about the 1080p 60 frames per second thing. I like to take games the way they are.
yeah.
But fuck's sake, if you're playing DMC on the consoles, you're doing it wrong. The PC is fucking godlike. Oh,
There's a-
it's just so smooth. I love it, man. I
There's
love
a certain niche
Yeah.
for games, like something like, I don't know if Halo actually is coming to the PC. I honestly don't think that people on Xbox One or anything would
it.
really.
I forgot to
care.
put that
Like,
down as a topic, but we have to talk
What?
about that. The fact that
Oh,
the
yeah.
Master Chief Collection might actually come to PC. That would eliminate
Yeah.
my reason for getting an Xbox One. I want an Xbox One, obviously, because, you know, exclusives will come around or whatever. But the Master Chief Collection was going to be my saving face. It was going to be like, all right, I'm buying this because the Master Chief Collection is coming out. If that shit comes out on PC and I buy an Xbox One, I'm going to be like, well, fuck. You know, I don't have an excuse anymore. I just bought an Xbox One.
But I have a feeling that that's going to be one of those games that it's not going to be like, it's not going to be that much better than it is on console because it's running at 60
That's
anyway,
true.
1080p, isn't it?
To be
So it's
honest,
like-
to be
Yeah.
honest, I'd probably end up buying it on both because I'm a fucking dumbass like that. But like, I don't know, man. Like, just Halo in the controller, that's just the way it's meant for me. You know, I played Halo when it first came out on the original Xbox. That's a controller game for me, even though I'm very sure it would control way better on mouse and keyboard. I'd be able to do, if I could play Halo on a mouse and keyboard, the headshots, oh my God. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not going to feel right unless I've got an Xbox controller in my hand. But obviously,
you can always use.
You
a
can
controller
play it on an Xbox
PC.
controller on your PC. Like,
But-
I hate
yeah,
those people.
but I'm going
Whoever
on. No,
actually
no.
thinks that playing an FPS with a controller on a PC is all right. You're actually something's wrong with you.
I mean, if you do prefer controllers, I mean,
But
I
at the
would still
same-
recommend it.
I don't
though.
know. At the same time, though, when you're going online, the other people using keyboard and mouse, you're going to get shit on. Like,
yeah,
sure,
you are
sure,
going
but
to
I
get
mean,
wrecked.
I guess, but I mean, if you prefer it, because
I
at
mean,
least
no.
you're still getting the frame rate and visual.
I mean, when I'm
upgrade.
being nostalgic and I want to fucking, you know, have the good old times like playing Halo 3 and shit, I'll hop on the Xbox. When I want to destroy people's soul and make them give up the fucking game forever, then I'll hop on PC, you know?
Yeah, I feel like, although I feel like somewhat Halo, when they made Halo, I feel like they tried to make it around the controller. Like they were like, okay, we need to make this game
Oh yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
fun as they can for the controller.
was
Yeah,
like-
honestly, I'm
It
thinking
was
of,
pretty damn revolutionary at the time. you
like
know,
Yeah.
if you
it-
think about it, it probably wouldn't be that great on mouse and keyboard.
That's what
when
I was
they
just about to say.
port it over.
like there's so many like mechanics. I don't know how that would work. I think a lot of what happens, a lot of the deeper stuff I'd say for Halo, like
Right.
certain jumps and tricks and doing all this other crazy shit, like
based around the controller.
yeah, like that would be very hard to do on keyboard and mouse. I'm sure those StarCraft guys that literally have 12 fucking fingers on each hand will be able to
Yeah, they'd be
do
okay
that
with
no
it.
problem. But for me, like it's a lot easier to maneuver with the controller. It takes some getting used. So I'm not saying that it'd be impossible, but a lot of the shit that you have to do in Halo on a competitive level or even a semi-serious pub stompy level, whatever, it's going to require you to do a lot of shit at once. And I don't know if you can do that
I
on
mean,
KBM.
as always, as you said, like with the StarCraft guys, obviously on PC you do have like way more keys available. So
Right.
basically, just have to do a pretty good job at mapping the whole thing and giving you the
Yeah.
ability to do custom mapping, obviously, and key binding. Since otherwise, PC people just freak out.
Yeah.
But we can't lie though. Rebinding like all of the keys is awful. Like it takes a long time. There's a lot of trial and error because you don't know. Like with a game like that's gonna be ported to PC, you're not gonna know what you're comfortable with until you're comfortable.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to keep trial and error until you're actually.
Which is why they have to
comfortable
do
with
a good job with it from the get go.
Yeah. Actually, I know Halo 1 and 2 are ported on PC.
Yeah,
I don't know how those
I
are
only
gonna
have,
happen.
I only have I only played Halo on PC. Well, technically I played it back at a friend's house, but I only own the very first Halo on PC, and I mean, it's fine. I don't think it's
Yeah.
considered as good as the original version, but I'm not really sure
But
why.
KBM works well and everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
keyboard and mouse
I
does,
think
but like
so.
I'm talking about like the older ones though, like not the older, the newer ones though.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
Halo
because-
3 and 4 are going to be a little bit harder to transfer over to PC.
And yeah, I guess
because-
it come down to like the deeper stuff as you were mentioning, Omega.
Yeah, like grenade jumping, crouch jumping, all that shit. Like doing that on a keyboard, like I'm trying to map it. Like grenade would probably be what, like the G key. So it's a grenade
Yeah.
jump, and then to crouch would be like control, and then jump is spacebar. Doing that all at once, like I just rip my fingers apart just trying to emulate that. Like that'd be difficult. Whereas
Yeah.
with the keyboard, or not a keyboard, with the controller, it's very simple because everything's like compact. Again, we'll have to see what happens, if that even happens, by the way. We'll have to see what goes on with that, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for the next topic?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. The next topic, digital games versus physical games. Now, the reason why I put this on here was I just had a revelation recently where if you talked to me a year ago, in fact, I thought of this because I was watching an old Derp Circle, because still, even back in the day, we were still the best podcast on the internet, you feel me? But
Interesting.
even back in the day though, like I was watching something where we were talking about digital and physical games, and my stance on it was only physical. Like fuck digital, get that shit out of here. I only want physical games. And now I'm here, right? I was sitting down on my chair and I wanted to play The Last of Us Remastered. I could not be asked to get the fuck up, so I bought it on PSN. Like, and that, like a year ago, I would have been like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to go get this game I'm going to get it physically. And while I still am a fan, very much so, of the physical media, and if there is a game out there that I really want, like, something like Persona 5, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, something like that, I'm getting those games physically. When it's a game sort of like The Last of Us, where, I've already played it, I know what to expect or something, or just another random ass game, I'm okay with digital, and I'm warming up to it a lot more now. So I think it offers a lot in the way of convenience, the way that the consoles are handling it now. The downloads are finally not taking 12 fucking centuries. The only thing they need to work on now, I feel like, for the digital market to grow on consoles, is to stop with this bullshit where the game costs more than it does in physical stores. That is just retarded, and I don't think that should be a thing. Like, that is just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think about the whole digital versus physical thing?
Well,
Go
ahead,
yeah.
Tommy.
Okay. I mean, I'm on your boat, honestly. I guess I only started going digital when I actually started, playing games on Steam, basically, which might have been like, I don't know, a couple of years ago. Because before that, I was definitely like full on digital, and I mean, I'm looking right now at my shelf, and I still have like a bunch of physical PC games. And nowadays, especially for PC, it's just unthinkable buying a PC game, in a physical manner, because it's so not worth it. You go to like a store and you see a game at retail price, and I think I just bought, I think I saw like, I don't know, Far Cry 3 or something for sale, and it was at, like $30 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I bought this game for $5 on Steam.
Yeah, that's another thing. Consoles have to like lower their prices.
Yeah, they need to step up with and do like Steam like sales, which PSN sort of had them. Yeah, and I mean they're moving in the right direction with that for sure. I mean personally, I agree with basically still getting physical for games you really like, especially collector's editions, because I mean obviously you also have like the digital deluxe editions that occasionally some games have, which are usually come with like the soundtrack and the digital art book or whatever. But not only for actual cases where a collector's edition may come with like a figurine or something, but even stuff like, for example, art books. It's really cool to actually own all of those little trinkets and actually have them. But I mean, collector's editions aside, and some occasional games, I do agree that like I'm probably moving on to nearly full on digital because of those things.
Yeah.
I think it's more just back when it was PS2. There was no way of getting things digitally, so it was like oh yeah, I need to get all these games, and it was really cool. It feels good to have a shelf covered in games.
Exactly,
it just feels good.
Yeah,
especially when there's not a greatest hits little label on it.
Fuck that shit.
So yeah, but now that we're like more into it, because like PS3 and Xbox 360 was like the first generation of digital games, so that's why. Like, and we're not counting PC here, obviously, but like it was the first real digital game thing. So it was where everybody was like in the period where they were like easing into like, it's all right, but I don't think I'm going to do it anytime soon as a main primary way of getting games. And now that the PS4 and Xbox One's out, a lot of people are actually saying that they would now rather buy games digitally because it's a lot easier. There's a lot less trouble of actually like carrying around, like having a case with a game in it, and the game can like always break if you don't take care of it,
right?
If you like, and it could always end up you losing the game or anything like that. Like it's all gone with digital games. Like you always have the game on your console. You're not going to lose your hard drive unless you're an idiot, and it's just a lot more simple. So now it's just seeming like we're slowly easing into like everybody being digital.
For me, one thing that I fucking like I underestimated incredibly was the fact that I no longer have to swap out my discs. Like I have so many games installed on my PS4 that like whenever I want to play a game, it's just like on Steam. I just boot it up and that's it. I don't have to take out a game, put in a game or anything like that. That luxury, like honestly, I don't give a shit. You can call me lazy or whatever. I really do appreciate that shit. That I don't have to switch out anymore. One thing that I absolutely despise, especially about the console, actually this is only with the console games, is the fact that you have a limited hard drive space. Now, this is especially bad because when you buy games on PSN and say you uninstall them to make room for a new game, PSN has no way of telling you that you've already purchased this game. You have to either remember that you bought that game or just like search it up or whatever and see that you can download it again. There is no like library of games. Like I wish that PSN would implement something to where it would have like a my library thing where it'll show all the digital games you've actually purchased and then you can install them from there. Just like how Steam does, how it shows you what you've got installed and what you don't have installed. I want that shit on PSN because how the fuck am I meant to remember what the hell I bought? Like on my Xbox 360, I've purchased many games through the online marketplace. However, I stopped using it for like almost a year and I whip it back out. And obviously I uninstalled something. I uninstalled some things to make room for other games and stuff like that. I totally forgot what I bought on there. So essentially, like I gave them that money. I don't even know what I bought. And that shit kind of sucks. So I would really like to see something implemented so that way I know what I've purchased and I can re-download or uninstall at any time without any fear of, just forgetting about the game or something like that.
Yeah. I was actually not aware of that issue, and yeah, that's definitely something that they need to fix. And I mean, if, by the way, just for anyone that might be thinking, oh, who'd forget the games that you actually bought? I mean, if you think about something like the Steam sales, where you buy like, or the Humble Bundle,
seriously,
where you buy like literally dozens of little indie games and whatnot that, you probably never will play. I mean, even if I probably will never play them, I still want to see them in my library.
Yeah.
And know that I actually have them.
Yeah, right.
So
You wanna
yeah,
know that you
I'd
have the
be
games.
mad. I'd be really mad if suddenly those just disappear and I forgot which ones I picked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you wasted your money somewhat, even though you were never gonna play them.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you just might be flipping through your games or whatever, and you're like, fuck it, I'll install this thing. And then by the time it's done installing, like, I don't want to fucking play it. And then you go on to another game, it's like, I don't want to play that either. It's just the whole grind. And I would like for if PSN, and not only PSN, but the Xbox Live Marketplace, if they want to sort of get into this market, I think that's what they need to do, because you really can't get past the fact that the consoles just have their like 500 gigabytes of hard drive space, whatever it may be. You can't get over that, and you can do like external hard drives and all that bullshit, but at the whatever, it's just that's just their capacity. You can't do anything about that. So at the very least, implement something so that way we can keep track of all the shit we've bought from you, especially if they want to start pushing this again. If they want to keep pushing this shit, you gotta have more sales, which I will commend PSN for. I got Injustice Ultimate Edition for $8 when it was selling for $30. Fucking, again, amazing. When PSN runs sales, they're really amazing, but their standard prices are asinine, and I still very much believe digital games should never be more than their physical counterparts.
For sure. It makes no sense.
It actually makes zero fucking sense.
Like, you're removing the costs from both shipping and actually having the box and whatnot. Like, yeah, it makes no sense.
I'd say like a $10 discount would be great. Like, I think that more than covers the shipping, the case, the manual, the disc itself, all that shit. Sell a game brand new for $50 on PSN, and then sell it for $60 in stores. I'd be down for that. I'd buy a lot more from PSN. I mean, I already do anyway, so that would just, it'd be not a quality of life thing. It'd be a great thing to just implement all around.
They would just need to not have a renting service. Then you could actually get on with it.
Should we talk about PlayStation Now? Because I forgot to put that down as well.
Oh yeah.
It's really dumb.
All right, so I don't think either of you guys have been able to try PS Now, and I haven't either because I'm broke as shit right now. But essentially, like, I've gotten to look at the library of games and the prices, and I would say for some of them, they're okay. Like, for some games, you can rent them for 30 days or 90 days even for like $5 or something, and that's okay. But a lot of the games that they're trying to sell would be like $15 for 90 days, where you can buy the game for like $8 and own it forever on PS3 or something like that. That's been a very big thing that's going around. Another thing is that the selection of games are pretty shitty, in my opinion. There's really nothing that I wanted to get something from PlayStation Now. I wanted to be able to try it so I can give my thoughts, like on this podcast or on my channel, on Twitter, whatever. I wanted to, but literally none of the games there did I think were one, worth it, and two, even if they were worth it, I was just like, I'm just not interested in that game, So I don't know, man. The PlayStation Now has a lot of work to go on to. But one of the forum managers, or I guess community manager, whatever, for Sony was answering a bunch of questions on the Sony forums or whatever. And they said that they're working on a flat subscription service that you pay for monthly, so that way you can get PlayStation Now for a flat service, sort of like a Netflix kind of thing, except I would imagine to be a lot more expensive. And then you can do that for whenever you want, essentially.
Well, so tell me, so did they ever say how much it's gonna be for
No,
PlayStation Now?
they just said they're working on a subscription service for it.
What value do you think, guys, would be like acceptable?
I think that a $20 price.
I was gonna say 20, but at the same
for a monthly
not a month,
fee?
no.
For monthly, you're getting access to any game you want to just stream. I'd say $20. I mean, it would all depend on the quality of games they have on there. If they're gonna have the quality of games that they have now, $10, maybe 15 if you're pushing it. If they're actually going to put Uncharted's, God of War's, shit we actually want to play on our PS4s or whatever, then I'd say $20 would be most likely. Would it be what I would like to pay? Of course not. But what would be most likely would be like a $20 price tag, or maybe a similar pricing to the PlayStation Plus service or something.
Hold on.
Right.
Friend
Yeah,
request.
Brain
I
bless.
just thought of something. What
Brain
if?
bless.
Okay, now listen here. What if they were giving you a subscription bundle for having PS Plus and PlayStation
Yeah,
Now's
that's what
subscription
exactly what I
together?
was about to bring
Yeah.
up because a
What if
lot of
they would do
people
that and you would get a smaller
wanted to suggest
price
that.
if you got both?
Yeah, yeah, I'd be down.
That'd be nice.
So let's say you pay, I, I don't know what would be a solid price. PlayStation
what's
Now is
the-
like $7-8 a month if you wanted to do it that way,
Okay.
or $17.99 for 3 months. So if we're looking at 3-month increments, you know, maybe $40 every 3 months, you get PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus. Maybe even a little bit cheaper than that. Let's say 30, 35.
Five?
That'd be,
Yeah.
I think that'd be pretty
I
fair.
would say that'd be a lot worth it.
That'd be fair, I think.
Yeah, it'd be awesome if they could also do like discounts for like longer subscriptions. So like if you subscribe for like an entire year,
Yeah.
you'd get like a smaller price. I don't know what would be acceptable at that point, like 150, 200 maybe, like somewhere in that zone. That'd be pretty damn worth it.
That sounds about right. Like maybe 100 or so bucks, maybe a little bit more
We're
for
paying for
Yeah.
two.
again. PlayStation Now is in beta, so hopefully by the time they actually roll this thing out, it'll be a flawless service. Because Total Biscuit said he was getting some serious artifacting on Blaze Blue, so that's obviously not good, especially for a fighting game. But for any game in general, artifacting and all that shit is not good. But if assuming they get this thing running absolutely flawlessly, then I'd say that that'd be pretty much worth it, and I would probably do that again if they inputted a better library and got some of the PlayStation 3 games that I really like to play, and more importantly, PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games. If they implemented PS2 and PS1, I'm on board immediately. Like essentially, no matter the price, I'm pretty much on board because I've bought in so many like PS2 classics, PS1 classics. I have maybe like 15 PS1 classics downloaded on my PS3. I've got maybe like anywhere between 5 to 10 PS2 games on my PS3. Like, yeah, I want my classic games, and you know, it's very convenient to not have to whip out another console or something like that when I want to play, you know, an older game or something like that.
You need to make sure to get Kingdom Hearts Remix 1.5 and 2.5 on there as well.
That would be godlike.
They need that.
Yeah.
That
So
would be godlike.
That'd be a damn
can
sweet
come out
deal.
and everyone can just play all three. Because then that'll actually make the entire trilogy would actually be on one console. It'd be the first time ever.
Actually, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. If you got the PlayStation Now and the PlayStation Plus bundle, assuming that ever happened, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 would pay for itself already, just like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes me kind of think that they're gonna fucking like gouge the prices of this thing. Like, I think it's going to be
a
exorbitant.
lot of franchise that you could basically just own the entire franchise, honestly, if you had access to the PS1 and PS2 and PS3 libraries, like stuff like Metal Gear, for example. That's a lot of games that you'd suddenly just have to stream.
Yeah.
Right.
But like,
speaking of Metal Gear, the HD collection is one of the games you can get on PlayStation Now right now, so that's a thing.
What is it up to? Is it up to 4? The collection? What is it up to? Metal Gear Solid 4? Or what?
Yeah, I think so.
No, it's the HD collection with 2, 3, and one of the PSP ones. That's the collection.
Not the legacy one.
Yeah, the legacy one.
The legacy is the one that goes with the 4.
That includes all.
Yeah, that includes every Metal Gear
That's
game.
the one that's like $1,000 billion on everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was about to say that's a good deal.
Yeah, I just want to say like that. I mean, even though obviously it has its flaws as a service right now, I mean, some people have been debating whether it is like the future of gaming or not. Like the rental service and whatnot.
It might be.
It could be. Like, I mean, I don't think it was ever like as much of a thing over here, but I know like video game rental was definitely a big thing with like even Blockbuster over there in the US and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So I mean, obviously combining that with the convenience of digital gaming, which as we were just discussing, everyone is slowly getting into. I mean, I think if well priced and if the games, the selection of games and the quality at which they're being streamed and whatnot is consistent, basically like a very solid version of the service, it could be the future of gaming, and it's definitely a very interesting thing
I remember when the PS4 first launched, people were saying that this could very well potentially be the last console ever made if we go with this whole cloud storage version of gaming, where all the hard work is done basically on the cloud, then this could potentially be like the last consoles ever. But I
Yeah,
still
I mean,
think they're
I
a
still doubt
little,
it.
yeah, I still
Yeah.
think they're a little weak. I think that this console generation is going to last a lot, or I guess not as long as the 360 and the PS3 did. The PS3 and 360 definitely overstayed their welcome by a few years, I'd say. But I don't think the PS4 and Xbox One are going to last that long. I'd say 5 years or so at, I don't know, maybe around there until we get the PS5 or Xbox 2, whatever the fuck they're gonna call it.
Right.
But something around there, I would imagine, will be like where they bring out the big guns, hopefully. But who knows what's gonna happen with all of that? But I even
Honestly,
forgot what we're
though,
talking about, so that's
I
great.
I still doubt they'll stop like making new consoles just because I just don't think it makes sense from like a financial
Business
point of view.
standpoint.
I mean, you could argue that. I mean, if everyone is into like subscription services, they're
Right.
obviously getting a lot of money. But just like someone can get into PS Plus on their PS3, and then by the time they get a PS4, just use that same PS Plus, since they're all linked.
Right.
I mean, I think that's just what they would do basically. And I mean, if what I think could happen though is, I mean, if they do move basically each library into the cloud and into streaming, I do think that like with each upcoming consoles, it'll make the whole like unified PlayStation family, for example, the whole PS3 to PS4 transition a lot easier than it is now,
Right.
since you already have everything online regardless.
Exactly. So with PlayStation Now, I think it has massive potential, and honestly, this could be once again another factor that puts a nail in the coffin that Xbox One seems to be heading in. The Xbox One obviously is far from dead. Like, you can't even like argue that, but like PlayStation 4 is doing great shit right now, and it is pushing ahead just massively, and it's not going to look good for the Xbox One coming up soon. But do you guys have anything else you want to close out with?
We better get a cut if they do that PS bundle thing. I want my cut. I'm not giving that idea, and then that's just not going to happen.
All right, next topic. So it appears that across the board, pre-orders are actually declining. So what are your guys' thoughts on pre-orders as a whole? Omni?
Honestly, I think that it's something that people should definitely be very cautious of. And basically, my general rule is, unless it's a game that you will buy, like, and love regardless. For example, for us all three, Persona 5, for example. I mean, we're all getting that game, so I mean, that's a game that we know we can pre-order. And maybe like for collectors or obviously limited editions. I mean, you could argue that in those scenarios, it's it's a viable option.
Yeah,
But
I think I'm just gonna cut you off for just 2 seconds. Collector's editions need to be pre-ordered because game stores never get more than what they get pre-ordered, and if they do, it's like 1 or 2. So collector's editions, I think, yes. But continue. Sorry.
No, that's basically it. Because just for general games, I mean, there are basically no benefits to it, unless, I mean, I guess you're counting stuff like exclusive store DLCs and pre-order bonuses and whatnot, which obviously a lot of companies are doing today, which by itself is not a good practice. So knowing that pre-orders are going down is good, because it should theoretically translate to people not buying into their shit.
Or they're gonna think maybe our pre-order bonuses aren't good enough and offer more shit.
Well, I mean, I guess that wouldn't be. I don't know. I mean, pre-order bonuses obviously should never be things that affect the gameplay. Obviously, it should either be like some new items or cosmetic changes or whatever. And I mean, again, even I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there should never be like pre-order bonuses that actually affect the game. It should always be like trinkets or
I think trinkets I'm a huge fan of. I think like little collectibles and stuff, that is okay with me.
That's cool.
What I hate is when you're taking shit out of the game and giving it to people that pre-order. That's not okay.
That's just a bad practice. Yeah.
I have a good example for us here coming up in a second.
All right, Toasty, it's actually your turn, so go right ahead.
Indeed.
All right. So how to do pre-orders right is obviously what they just said. How you would give them like some sort of trinket, something nice, like a small little thing that just sweetens the pot a little bit. If you know that you're gonna like the game and you know you're gonna buy the game, it's okay to pre-order, I guess. But the way to not do it right is the way Watch Dogs did their limited editions. How many did they have? About 7 editions that were all
Oh
separate?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot
And
about that.
For some of them, you won't even get, like, there's none of them that you would get everything. You would have to buy more than one edition if you wanted to get everything that was included in there.
That
And
game.
it is absolutely stupid. And I remember every time I would look when Watch Dogs was coming up and when it was coming closer and closer, I always would see it's the top sellers list, number 1. And it's just pre-orders. And I just really hated it.
Yeah.
I-
For me, pre-orders, I just expressed it a little bit, but I'm not really too much of a fan of them. Most of the times I don't even pre-order a game unless the pre-order bonus is something that I want. Like for example, with like Kingdom Hearts 1.5, you got an automatic upgrade to like this limited edition that came with an art book or whatever. So I pre-ordered that version. So that way I can get that. It ended up being the same price or whatever. But again, I think for collector's editions or limited editions or what have you, those are necessities to pre-order if you're interested in that collector's or limited editions, because those are very hard to come by and they end up being worth a lot of money too. So I mean, I think in that case it's worth it. But if you're buying just a standard $60 game, I don't see the point in pre-ordering unless, of course, the company itself sort of forces you to pre-order by giving you pre-order bonuses. Like for example, let's say you got to have Chie as another character in Persona 5 or something if you pre-ordered. Who the fuck isn't going to pre-order at that point? Like a character that you loved, from the past games or whatever, making a reappearance or something, like shit like that. Like that shit really pisses me off, but at the same time it's so, if you're a hardcore fan, it's going to force you to pre-order that because obviously you want to see that. And obviously that was just a rough example. Obviously, I don't think Chie would really fit in with that universe.
And I doubt
but
Atlas would ever do that. I mean, Atlas
and if they
is
did, fuck off.
They're strict with that.
But Atlas are the gods. They're one of the best game developers in my opinion. So I'll trust them on that. But I was just using that sort of as an example kind of thing. Yeah. So in my opinion, pre-orders, I'm iffy on collector's editions. I'm all for it. If I'm gonna get the game anyway, I might pre-order it, but at the same time, there's a lot of situations that arise where I can't get the game on a release anyway, so there's no use in me pre-ordering it because I won't get it on the first day. And when you think about it, pre-orders were supposed to be you guaranteeing yourself a copy of the game, but they get fucking truckloads of the games anyway. I'd say unless the game is a very niche game, because there are PS Vita games that release that I am actually interested in. One of them was Danganronpa. I couldn't find that game fucking anywhere because those kind of games, they're very niche. You know, the game stores only get like 2 copies of them, literally like only 2 copies. So if there's 2 other people that live near you that go to your same GameStop and they are interested in that game, sucks for you. In that case, yes, if it's like one of those very weird, obscure JRPG games, you pre-order those just to make sure you get yourself a copy. Other than that, though, I don't really think they're needed.
Yeah.
I honestly, for pre-orders as a whole, I hate the practice because it's literally you giving your trust of it being a good game and worth buying before you even could see
Aliens,
reviews.
Colonial Marines,
especially that.
Shit.
Especially games like Aliens, like it's so stupid. It's such a dumb thing to do.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just a really stupid thing to do in my opinion. But there are some times where game companies do pre-orders right, and you know if Persona 5 wants to throw an extra character at me, you know, I'm not gonna complain. It's just with games that I really love, I'm always biased, but I just hate pre-orders as a practice.
Yeah, I'll agree because like you said, you're essentially giving them your money, saying, "All right, please don't be shit." Especially on Steam, I think, because don't you have to like pay that off in full or whatever? Actually, no, don't you get charged when the game releases? Is that how it works? I'm not even sure.
I think that
I don't know. I never pre-ordered on Steam.
I know on Amazon when you pre-order, you get charged when the game releases. But for example, like GameStop, you put a $5 down, $5 minimum down on the game. And if you don't end up getting the game or whatever, they'll give you your $5 back and you can spend it on whatever. So I guess you can do that, pre-order the game, and then maybe see what people are saying about it once it's close to release, and then maybe change your pre-order, just have $5 used to put towards another game or something. But in just general, I don't know, man. I just feel like the pre-orders are kind of stupid, especially when they split pre-orders up between retailers. That shit is fucking stupid. Like, that is just cancerous, in my opinion. Anyway, do you guys have any other things to say about the pre-orders, or want to move on?
No,
Pre-orders are stupid. Please don't do it. That's
pretty much.
All right, so we've been getting a lot of remasters lately.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
It looks like, I don't even know why this is happening. I would never have expected this game to be one, but Sleeping Dogs, developed by Square Enix, will be remastered to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because of their financial situation. But like, because obviously making a remastered game is a lot easier than making a whole new game, mainly because you know the fan base of one game is already there. Like, let's say you played Sleeping Dogs on the PS3 and you loved it, but it was on the PS3, so it didn't actually get to push its actual limits. And then the definitive edition comes around, you have a PS4, and you want to see how well they've done with Sleeping Dogs to transfer it over to the new console. They're going to probably try and update it a whole bunch, I would at least hope. And I don't know. It's just like, you know that there's a guaranteed fan base there, because Sleeping Dogs was a very successful game. That's why there's a definitive edition for it. So they're just.
It's kind of funny you say that, though, because despite Sleeping Dogs' success and Tomb Raider and Hitman, they sold millions, but to Square Enix,
there were still financial losses.
There were still losses.
That's their second. Wait, so Tomb Raider was Square Enix. I almost forgot about that. So that's their second definitive edition on PS4 and Xbox One.
Actually.
Wow.
And I mean, I really enjoyed Sleeping Dogs. I actually didn't put that many hours into it.
I completed that.
But I mean, I do quite like it. I mean, I play it on PC, so I mean, no point there in getting it.
I'm still gonna get it on PS4. I like playing on consoles. Kill me. I don't give a shit.
I mean, I played it with controller. I mean, and it was, although the keyboard controls are actually pretty damn solid. I recall playing the demo originally on keyboard and mouse, and it was pretty okay. But you know, regardless, I mean, I guess that Sleeping Dogs, out of those three, you know, like Tomb Raider and Hitman and Sleeping Dogs, it was the least successful. So I don't know, you know, how the budget for that game was compared to the other two, but I mean, regardless, you know, it's obviously an ambitious game. But I mean, it still didn't do as well as they were hoping for, and it kind of went under the radar for a lot of gamers, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, hopefully with this edition, you know, more people will pick it up, since, you know, it's actually a game worth playing. And yeah, it actually sort of reminds me of Wind Waker in a way, in the sense that that game was also, you know, one of the reasons why that was also released is because Nintendo felt that a lot of people didn't get to play that game because of the GameCube's
the PS2 was destroying everybody at that time, so.
Which is ironic, since, you know, the Wii U isn't very much better.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, it's it reminds me of a situation.
Yeah, when you look at Sleeping Dogs, they're released, you know, that time of the year where every game is releasing. So, and then they're making the same mistake now, though, with the remastered edition. They're releasing it. What was it, in November, or was it slated for next year? I'm not even sure.
I didn't check a release date, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think they just said that they were working on it. If that's the case, make it early 2015. Like, you guys got to be spreading these fucking games out. Like, fucking companies, so fucking, they're just idiots, man. You're sitting here with the fucking niche game that it's a new IP. You're taking a risk on this game. Don't fucking release it the same time as Assassin's Creed 28. Like, oh my god. All right. Sleeping Dogs was a fucking fantastic game. It really pains me that a lot of people did not play that game. It was incredible, in my opinion, especially for the fact that that was the first game in that IP. If they were to expand upon that and make a second one and make this into a franchise, this shit could beat out Grand Theft Auto for me. Like, this, it wasn't as open as Grand Theft Auto, admittedly, but still, man, I had a blast with this game. The fucking hand-to-hand combat was awesome. I really liked that. And there was gunplay too, solid gunplay at that. This game was awesome. And especially right towards the end, the little shit that happens, man, like, I mean, it wasn't the most gripping story out there. Some of the voice acting was but for a first entry, like, I would like to see more of this, and I'm willing to bet what they're doing with this is they're sort of gauging if this thing is successful, they might continue on
Yeah,
with Sleeping Dogs. You know,
obviously.
yeah,
Of course. I just wanted to mention, by the way, that I mean, Sleeping Dogs, if you don't know, was originally a sequel to
True
like,
Crime
True
was
Crime.
it? Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so it's sort of like the spiritual successor, I guess. And I mean, that's a series that was
Have you guys
also
ever played True Crime?
I played True
Yeah.
Crime on PS2. It was actually really
True
good.
Crime,
Yeah,
True
they were
Crime was
actually really good
godlike.
games.
Yeah,
But I mean, in comparison to GTA, they didn't do that well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's a pretty damn similar situation, especially since nowadays so many games are open world, and I mean nowadays I guess the two. I mean, Grand Theft Auto is obviously the big one, but I mean Saints Row is also a rather popular franchise. So Sleeping Dogs does have a lot of competition in that sense. But
Actually, I just remembered. Sorry, Omni.
no,
It makes sense with these two remasters, Tomb Raider and Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs, it's got a sequel and it's coming out for PS4, Xbox One, everything. It's
Wait,
called
it has a
Triad
se-
Wars. It's
Yeah,
confirmed
it's
to have
confirmed.
a sequel.
Oh shit! I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Oh, I'm
working
so
on it.
happy right now.
Yeah, and also I forgot as well. They showed Tomb Raider at E3.
Right.
It makes sense. They all the games that of the new ones that they're gonna make, they want the previous version on the console so that people who play those new games can play the
Right.
games that they had before them in
Exactly.
Definitive Edition, which makes a lot of sense actually.
And
Right,
by the way,
it's just-
the Tomb Raider Definitive Edition is fucking gorgeous. Like I played the game on PC. That was my first experience with it. This was one of the cases where the console game looks better, but that's only because of the fact that the PC version was held back so much. Don't get the shit misconstrued. If they were to do the same thing on PC, it'd look way better on PC. But at the same time, the PS4 version was fucking gorgeous. It ran so beautifully. It was amazing. If you guys have not played Tomb Raider and you've got a next generation console, please play Tomb Raider. You've gotta support games like this. Tomb Raider, Sleeping Dogs, games like this. They're not those sort of games where they're like, okay, we're gonna milk the fuck out of this game or milk the fuck out of this franchise or whatever. Tomb Raider was a
if
really
they're successful.
well. I can see that, but I mean, what I really meant to say is hopefully they don't start releasing the games every fucking year. So if they go about this like level-headed people, I suppose, then I think Tomb Raider and Sleeping Dogs can be like some of the next biggest franchises on this next generation of gaming, and I couldn't be more excited for it because those are both fantastic games.
Yeah, it's funny because like since Tomb Raider, the new one has come out, people have been trying hard and hard to actually like get the PC version to look like that, trying to mod it, and nobody's been able to do it so far.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no one's been able to make it look that good so far. Mainly because they added new assets and stuff. Like Lara Croft's face, you can like especially tell when you go on the PS4 version and look at a comparison. Her face is a lot different. Hair's a lot different.
They actually changed the model and whatnot. So
Yeah, they changed.
Oh,
Like, a lot
I was about to
of
say
models, so
because
you have to like replace.
I was like, they made Grand Theft Auto 4 look better than real life, so I don't know how modders can do this.
Well, think about it like this: it's been out since the middle of last year. GTA 4 has been out for like 6-7 years.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been out since like 2008, so they've had a lot of time to do that.
right,
But
just going like slightly off topic for that. I seriously don't get why like every developer just releases modding tools for their games. Like it adds so much longevity to their games. Like there's a reason. I mean, obviously, I'm an Elder Scrolls fanboy, but I mean, I think I can say like objectively that if it's not the biggest modding community out there, it's definitely one of the biggest.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's the biggest.
people-
I'd say
like-
Minecraft is the biggest.
Yeah, I think it goes back and forth, but I don't know statistics, but regardless, it's one of the biggest. And I mean, mods are still coming out for Morrowind, a game that's like over 10 years old, and people are still playing that.
And I mean,
it just adds a lot of longevity. And I mean, obviously, with games like Bethesda that people obviously always complain about bugs and glitches, it adds a way of fixing those. And I mean, that obviously shouldn't make the developers go soft on making the games. They shouldn't count on modders eventually fixing them. But I mean, having a modding community benefits your game so much. I genuinely do not understand why most companies don't just full on embrace it.
And to a lesser extent, let's take a look at like something like Halo 3 that had a very in-depth custom games and a Forge creator where you got to create your own maps, and with the introduction of their sandbox map that was completely blank, you got to do anything on the bottom floor or on the top floor. It added so much longevity to that game, and it added so much hours and so much fun and so many fun game modes, like the whole death races. Griffball was originally like a custom games thing that was created on Halo 3 that they eventually imported into their later games as a full-on, you know, game mode and stuff like that. Like just the small things like that can add so much to the game that you don't even know. Minecraft is essentially a whole Forge mode of Halo 3, and it is the most popular game of all time. I don't want to say all time, but it is the most popular game right now. Everybody's heard of Minecraft. Everybody's played Minecraft at this point. It is just that game, and it is essentially a blank canvas where you do what you want. So when you look at it, it's not full on modding. You're not actually changing it, like the way the game is played or the way the game looks or anything like that. But when you're playing the game of Minecraft, even vanilla, you sort of modding the world around you and creating everything that you want. And that's really appealing to players. And I agree. They should definitely embrace that.
I just want to call to attention right now. Skyrim on Nexus mod, Skyrim is the biggest game here.
Yeah,
Nexus
of course,
Oblivion.
by far.
35,000 files, which those are separate mods each. 501.07 million downloads.
Damn.
That's a lot. And that's just Nexus. Like, there are ways to get mods that aren't on Nexus.
Yeah,
exactly.
Dragon
Nexus
Age
is,
as
you know,
well. It's like 19.88 million downloads for Dragon Age 1, which, like, the graphics mods for Dragon Age 1, I know that you can't play Dragon Age 1 on PC because you played it on console, Omega, but
how do you do
it
that?
looks a lot better when you mod it.
Dude, okay. Like, I don't know what it is. I can't play Dragon Age on PC. Like, I try to play it, and I'm just
I
like...
get that for, like, 2, and especially Inquisition, because of how it seems to be going. But, like, Origins is...
I know! I don't understand. I'm sitting here playing on
so
PC.
strange.
I'm like, this is so much better, but it's so fucking worse. Like, I don't know. I'm fucking stupid, but whatever. Let's just get the fuck over this. You guys ready for the next topic?
Yeah.
Speaking of remasters, Resident Evil 1 Remastered for the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One will be coming out in November, and it is a remake of the GameCube version. Now, let me talk...
remaster.
The remaster. Dude, this is like one of the games that actually needs a remaster, unlike, you know, like The Last of Us or Sleeping Dogs. While, you know, I'll accept them and they're great and everything, but my God, if you guys haven't seen these screenshots, I'm gushing over them. The mansion looks fucking beautiful. I like the way the zombies look. The textures look maybe a little bit too low res, but I'm hoping that's the PS3, Xbox 360 version, and that the next gen version will look a little bit better. Please. But regardless, I think this is going to be awesome. Also, before you, I know you're trying to jump the gun here, Toasty, but
no, that's not even it.
Another thing is that they will add multiple controller schemes, so that way if you hate the way that, you know, your character walks
the
with
tank controls.
Yeah, your character walks like a dick up his ass or something like that. You can actually have it to be a lot more fluid. And fuck, this shit actually looks like it's going to be like a scary game. All right, Toasty, you can go.
No, I was just saying, when you were mentioning those games that don't need a remaster anymore, if I see one more Resident Evil 4 remaster, I'm going to actually jump out my window. That game has been remade so many times that it's actually ridiculous.
There is no reason why you shouldn't have played Resident Evil 4 at this point. It is literally available on your phone. It's available on your phone. Like, what the hell?
I just really want the Resident Evil 1 remake to actually play, like, you know, Revelations? You ever play that?
Yeah, yep.
I want to play like Revelations. Revelations was a good game.
I'd say at the very worst, play like Resi 4, but I think Revelations would be a good controller scheme. I think that might be the way they go. Another thing about this, we were talking about Sleeping Dogs. What if Capcom is releasing this to see how well it sells? If it sells well, they'll make the Resident Evil games more like Resi 1.
Yeah. I mean, after, like, you know, the failure sort of, that was the last game.
Resi 6, yeah. Oh, no, Operation Raccoon City, I think, may have been...
Oh. No, I think Operation Raccoon City was before Biohazard.
But I'm talking about 6, you know, because no one really enjoyed that game.
Nobody enjoyed Raccoon City.
You know, like, 4 pretty much everyone loves, even, you know, if it's the one that sort of started, you know, a different gameplay style. Right. And then most people still enjoyed 5. But, I mean, the game, you know, that's being remastered here, the Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube. I mean, I think most people, or at least a good chunk of people, still see that as the best, if not just the best Resident Evil, the best classic one.
Right.
So I think it makes sense that that they're releasing this game. I guess not that many people have played it again because the GameCube wasn't all that popular. So it makes sense that a lot of people didn't get the chance to play the remaster of the original one. So this is a good as chance as ever as to jump on play obviously one of the most iconic games ever.
Exactly.
I would honestly be on board with like if this goes well, and I have a feeling that it will. Resident Evil 1
I
being
think it will.
remade.
Yeah.
If it stays
think-
remotely faithful, I think absolutely. Because a lot of people think the GameCube version of Resi 1 is the way to
Yes.
play it. So
I think that it may be Capcom actually starting to listen to the fans, and then they'll
Hopefully.
I guess what Resi game could come out every 2-3 years, somewhere around there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean,
For a good
obviously
Resident Evil game.
since they have a lot of smaller ones, like 6 and then Raccoon City, they
Right.
have a lot of games. I
They
guess it's
could-
probably less than that, but
They could be playing, if this goes well, to then have the Resident Evil games of current to actually be more like the old games, obviously, like more survival horror and less action.
right.
Like Resident Evil 6 was like all action.
Exactly. A lot of people sort of can make sense of Resident Evil because after all this time that either the zombie infection or Las Plagas, whatever one you want to go with, after it's been around for so long, it's not going to turn into survival horror anymore. It's going to turn into most of the world is infected and you're just like mowing through them. So it makes sense why it turned that way, but from a gameplay standpoint, that's not what the fans want. That's not what Resident Evil was. Really, what Resident Evil was, the later iterations anyway, were more action games that felt clunky, and obviously that's not the way to go.
I mean, it's a little bit like Dead Space if you think about it. I mean, a lot of people complain about the same thing with Dead Space 3, and then I mean, I think to a lesser degree than Resident Evil 6. I'd say it's like on par with Resident Evil 5, for example. I mean, the amount of critics people have. Because I mean, a lot of people still really enjoyed Dead Space 3, and I mean, they say that mechanically it's like the best of the series. But I mean, it did lose a lot of the the tense atmosphere and whatnot because it sacrificed that for the action. And I think a lot of obviously the horror genre is really popular right now. Obviously, also because of YouTube, and a lot of people are obviously doing let's plays of that.
Yeah.
So we also have a lot of shitty horror games out there, which is unfortunate. But I mean, I think, for example, like I think it's the Evil Within, right? That's also being handled by Resident Evil's creator. So you have a lot of people basically trying to go back to the roots of the genre, basically, and I think that's what a lot of fans want. So hopefully all of those games will be commercially successful enough to warrant a follow-up within that sort of mechanics.
Yeah,
I guess it makes sense for Capcom because they probably thought after Resident Evil 4 came out, everyone loved it, and they were like, oh well, so everybody wants this now. They don't want Resident Evil 1, 2, 3 type of stuff. They want this Resident Evil 4, but to more of a bigger extent. So they tried to like make Resident Evil 5, which was sort of in between, I think, Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 4. It's like in between them.
I think if you play Resi 5 with a friend, you'll have a great time with it. And that's how I played it personally, and I loved it. But it obviously didn't hold the standard that Resi 4 did.
Yeah, and then they made Resi 6, and then like everybody then they really started to get hammered. Like everybody's like saying they want the old survival horror back. So now I guess they're just listening to the fans and remaking 1, and maybe they will. Maybe, I don't know. They might end up seeping back into, so maybe they might try and mix it a little bit, but that might not work out as well. Trying to mix survival horror and action might not work out well at all.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Really not.
I mean, I guess you could argue that Resident Evil 4 was like a pretty good balance of that, honestly.
Yeah, I guess because there were sort of hordes of enemies and shit. Yeah,
it's like not a lot of ammo, and when you are out of ammo and you're like helpless because not extremely helpless, obviously, because you have a knife, but like you're somewhat helpless. It invokes a little bit of a feeling of somewhat more carefulness and a little bit scare. Like a lot of times, even in Resi 4, even though it was more action oriented, some of the things in Resident Evil 4 kind of fucking scary. They're kind of scary,
Yeah.
and it kind of went away with Resident Evil 5 and 6. It seemed like it was just like more comedic and like running through, like not comedic obviously, but like more just action, and you're used to all
Yeah,
this, so you're fine with mowing through zombies. There's no feeling of
yeah, you get
scaredness
desensitized
anymore.
to like the
Yeah,
horror, basically.
Exactly.
after being
A-
used to it for so long.
And this actually brings up, it reminds me of an article that I read the other day. It was on Game Informer, and it was basically a discussion between two editors. If survival horror is still a valid term nowadays for a genre, because I mean, if you think about it, I actually think that they mentioned that Resident Evil was probably the game that kickstarted that term in the first place. Because it was used originally as like a marketing tool to set itself apart. Um, but it's a name that holds little value nowadays, because I mean, if you think about it, I mean, what the hell does survival mean? I mean, obviously, in pretty much in 99% of games out there, you're trying to survive.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, the term originally meant um, being in more harsh conditions, as you guys were bringing up, like having less ammo and basically having a more tense atmosphere and whatnot. But because I mean, every game out there is basically features a lot of combat mechanics. For example, some people could argue that The Last of Us was a survival horror because it had some horror elements, and you're trying to survive and whatnot. But at the same time, it also has obviously guns and whatnot. So some people could label it as a shooter, but I'd be doing it disservice, because of the narrative and all of that. And it is, the whole article was basically an interesting discussion on this. But I mean, all in all, I do agree that terminology is obviously a subjective thing, but I mean, horror as a whole just encompasses the genre better, I suppose.
It
Right.
seems like. Oh, I'm sorry. Omega, go right ahead. No?
Nah,
Okay.
I was gonna like switch off the topic a little bit, but if you still got something to say, good.
Yeah, just a little bit. It seems a little bit, now that I think about it, seems like the entire like horror game like set of companies seems to be trying to go back to survival horror in a way. Like Alien Isolation is trying to be
Right.
a full
Oof, that game
survival
looks
horror game,
fucking
and it
scary as
actually looks
shit.
really good.
So did
And
Colonial Marines. Just saying.
well, no, Colonial Marines I thought was going to be awful from the beginning because I didn't think it was going to work. But I don't know. An actual survival horror, if they can make it work, because there are a lot more survival horror games that are popping up on Steam that are even indie, and
Yeah.
some of them actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, if survival horror can come back, that'd be really great. The thing that sets a lot um of those horror games away from Resident Evil is that most of those horror games are first person, which is a little bit more scary because you feel like you actually are the person and that you're looking through their eyes. And if you're third person, you're obviously looking at somebody
Right.
else's body and you're like, oh yeah, this is
If
okay.
if
So
you
I'm
think
playing
about
as
it,
this
like
person.
the original Resident Evil sort of, you know, uh dealt with that in the way that you have like the locked camera.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, basically, if you just you don't full on see what you're expecting, so you can just go around the corner and suddenly there's just a zombie waiting for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, a
It
lot of
made it
tension
very
was
it made it
also
very cinematic by doing
yeah,
that.
I think also the claustrophobic sort of way.
Right.
Like, you know how there's
Yeah.
always like corridors and stuff, and it's like very thin. There's not a lot of space to go around. It makes it a lot more scary because you're
Exactly.
expecting something to happen any second.
So, what are you guys' thoughts on the survival horror genre of today? Like, have you played any of the recent survival horror games or anything like that?
I
haven't had a
mean,
chance
I'm
to.
not a horror fan for anything, honestly. Like,
I
I mean,
agree.
be it games, films, whatever. Like, it's just one of those things where I don't get it. Like, I know, like getting a lot of people find getting scared a cool thing because, and I mean, obviously, you get like the adrenaline rush and whatnot, but
Yeah.
I'd just rather get that rush somewhere else because I don't like being psychologically scarred for life. So basically, no, I don't play them all that much. But I mean, I do think that the future classic of the past generation would be Amnesia. I mean, I think that a lot of people would probably consider that one, if not the scariest game, like of just probably of all time. Like, it's definitely one of the scariest games ever made. And I think Amnesia was the one that sort of kickstarted the whole thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
again, the horror genre is very popular through YouTube and through Let's Plays. And Amnesia itself was, I think, the one that had the most like symbiotic relationship with YouTubers, in the sense that it became really popular and led to the wave of horror games nowadays. But it was also a game that allowed a lot of YouTubers, and obviously, no point in not mentioning PewDiePie. It was also the game that propelled a lot of them as YouTubers. So it was a thing where it benefited both the game and the people playing. Whereas nowadays, I mean, games are literally made, like indie teams, are literally making bad horror games so that they are played by YouTubers and then people buy them, which is obviously bad and leads to a whole lot of bad games. And I mean, actually, that I would blame on Slender rather than Amnesia, since I mean, Amnesia is a very complex game, whereas Slender, I mean, it's really effective, but I mean, it's ultimately a really simple game to make. So I mean, people just thought, if Slender's super successful and it didn't take them that much work to do, why wouldn't I? And obviously, we have a lot of not that great horror games out there, but still, it's good to see that again, games like the Evil Within seem to be going back to a more tense atmosphere, and it's cool to see that from not just indie teams, but actually AAA teams that are actually investing in that market and actually doing something worthwhile, or so it would seem.
Yeah, for me, I'm with Omni. I'm not down for the horror shit, but what I really fucking like is the tense situations. Last of Us. That game is tense as all hell, man. Like when you're walking through a room of fucking clickers and runners, and if you get spotted by a runner, then that means all the clickers are, attracted to you and everything. It is some really tense shit. I am a fan of that. I'm not a fan of walking in a door and having a monster scream in my face. That shit is fucking stupid. I don't get it. I don't know why people like that shit, but it is Outlast. That was one thing I was going to talk about. Everybody seems to be touting these games that are so scary and oh my god, you're gonna jump out of your seat or whatever. When I played Outlast,
not even the worst one, by the way. I mean, it's at a whole, it's still a decently made game, but
I watched,
it relies a lot on jump scares.
Basically. Yeah, I watched the DLC. The DLC was really interesting. The story of Outlast, in my opinion, is actually really solid. I wanted to play through that game to get through the story, but the game itself was just boring, and even what was meant to be scary made me jump, but then after that the atmosphere was gone. I didn't feel tense. I didn't feel any of the atmosphere that I felt with something like The Last of Us, Amnesia, or even the early Resident Evil games. And that's really what it comes down to. The horror games aren't the jump scares, aren't the scary monster that looks putrid. It's not that. It's the atmosphere that you can create. And that's what people don't understand. People were saying that, the Outlast is so scary and stuff, but really what made Outlast not that to me was a lot of the AI, because the main monster or whatever the hell, it was stupid, man. Like I would be walking down a hallway, go into a room, and then he's literally right behind me. I hop into a locker. The guy doesn't know where the hell I am. Like it's just that the AI is stupid. You have nothing to really fear, because at the end of the day, when he catches you, all he does is, it's a game over, restart, whatever bullshit. There was just no sense of urgency for me in that game. And I feel like that's what a horror game should be. When I first played Resident Evil, my urgency was, I want to get the fuck out of here. I want to get away from these zombies. I only have like 2 bullets left. I'm in this small ass corridor. There's 3 zombies coming towards me. What the hell am I supposed to do? Like that was the atmosphere that it created. It created these tense situations, and that's what gets me going. I can't stand what the horror genre has become today. Slender was an absolute fucking disgusting game. I hate that game with every bone in my body. That game is just the epitome of what I consider to be a bad video game. That game has no point. It was just stupid. It would be a mobile game. If it was a mobile game, I don't give a shit. But you're gonna actually try to put that shit on a PC and tell me that this is a horror game? Fuck off. That game was dog shit.
Make it.
I just like to mention like 2 things. First of all, again, with like The Last of Us and basically other games that you wouldn't really think of as being horror, but that still frighten you because of the atmosphere and whatnot. I really felt that, for example, in BioShock, like
I knew you were going that way.
Game,
yeah,
and like when the first splicer pops up and you're inside this like sort of submarine
Yeah.
kind of thing, and then he's just like, you hear him and whatnot. Like
Yeah.
that's a really tense situation. And I mean, Rapture as a whole obviously is very atmospheric. And I mean, I guess the whole like jump scare sort of thing. I mean, obviously the same happens with film. I mean, there's just a difference between films that have like jump scares everywhere,
Yeah.
and actually psychological horror and whatnot. And I think if I recall, I think like horror basically goes when you feel a presence near you and then you turn around and you see something, whereas terror is like when you feel something and then when you turn around nothing's there. And like terror is supposedly like way more scary,
Right.
because again it's not the actual thing, it's not the popping up, it's the anticipation
Yeah.
that scares you. And I mean, that's what these games should focus on, is creating tense atmospheres and building up on that, rather than just using cheap tricks on jump scares. Because another thing about jump scares is not just a monster popping up, is that they're usually accompanied by like a super loud sound.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not scary, that's just loud. And
Exactly.
that's why it's effective.
Yeah,
it's
it goes
cheap
from
and
it goes
bad.
from completely quiet to all of a sudden, and it's just
Yeah.
like anybody's gonna jump at that. Like, what the fuck? What I think
Yeah.
would be like extremely scary and effective would be like, all right, you're walking through a building, there's no music playing, it's just the ambient noise, maybe crickets you hear outside, the floor creaking, whatever. You're fucking like opening doors or whatever, and then you walk by, and you would have to like essentially pay attention to see it, but like you walk by, like say you walk in a bathroom, and then in the mirror, like you're looking this way, and then in like the mirror you see like the creature or something. There's no fring, there's no crackling that happens like in fucking Slender, there's no stupid fucking noise to bring your
Yeah.
attention to it, but it's just there. And then like you keep looking around the room, whatever, and then you look up at the mirror, and then all of a sudden you see the beast, and you're like, oh shit, you look behind you, maybe it's gone, maybe it's there, who fucking knows? Like shit like that. That
Yeah.
is horror.
I just like to mention, I think it's on Silent Hill 2. I never played it myself, but I recall reading this on a magazine I had when I was a kid, that I think there's like this section where you're supposed to walk through these woods. And basically, I think if you run through it, it's decently fast. But I mean, if you're just walking, it can take you like at least like 5 minutes or something, I think, from what I recall. And basically, it has like this super tense atmosphere, and you hear these noises, and you're like super immersed, and you're just expecting something to pop out, but nothing does.
Yeah.
And then you just move out of the forest and continue.
I love that.
Like,
I fucking love that
that's
shit.
super effective, and
Hell
and,
yes.
doesn't rely on cheap tricks.
Even when films do that and stuff all the time, like when they're
Yeah.
investigating this like haunted house or where the demon is supposedly located or whatever, some cliche bullshit, and then they're walking around and it's just like hearts pounding, you fucking hear all this weird fucking shit. One game that did that was Gone Home. Fucking shit,
Yeah,
dude.
I was actually thinking about
Yeah,
Gone
dude,
Home.
because that game was scaring the fuck out of me, and it's
Yeah.
not even a scary game.
The second time I was playing through Gone Home, I knew nothing was gonna happen.
Yeah.
I was still
Yeah.
fucking tense.
Yeah, seriously, man, that game did a fucking fantastic job of doing that. I respect that shit, man.
Yeah.
One little honorable mention that I want to give is, even though it's not technically a horror game, Metro Last Light did.
Ooh, Metro.
Yeah.
Metro Last
Oh,
Light.
Metro
because
Redux.
yeah, Metro Redux is
Nice.
actually coming to PS4. I was about to say
I
that.
can't wait
later
to
this
get
month.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue.
But Metro Last Light, unlike Metro 2033, it actually allowed you to go by yourself into a tunnel, and you had to make a long journey to another side of the underground. And you had to be in yourself. You were in this car, and there were these spiders. And these spiders, you can't just shoot them and they'll die. You have to actually shine your flashlight on them, which your light's always going out, and you need to always recharge it. And if you don't, then you're gonna die. And you always have to shine it on them to kill them, which takes a little bit of time. And it's and half the time when you'll hear sounds in caves and stuff when you're like going through trying to get extra ammo or extra med packs or stim packs, whatever you call them, and you always would hear sounds and nothing would come out. And like the entire game obviously is incredibly atmospheric, and I just love that. Even though it's not a horror game, it's still trying to like scare you in that way and not trying to like just jump things out at you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Metro's a
library-
great game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Oh, sorry,
And
go ahead.
speaking of like, I was thinking about you were mentioning like we were mentioning like the sounds and whatnot. And sound design and the music itself plays such a huge role when it
Yeah.
comes to horror. And I was actually I was thinking about this earlier. In Amnesia, like one of the most iconic monsters is like the one that like exists when you're like on water and he's invisible. So you don't actually see him, you just listen to him and you see like the
Yeah.
splashes and the ripples on the water where he's going. So you never actually see anything. You just see the water moving and you're fucked. So again, it's like it's always the alluding to something that's there, and obviously the whole situation of being chased by an actual monster is obviously something that's very scary. And I was thinking about Outlast, for example, which usually has these very grotesque designs. And I mean, Amnesia also has that, but again, sometimes it's not about actually creating something super scary. It's about just the atmosphere and withholding when you need to.
Yeah.
Insanity, I would say in Amnesia plays a big part in that.
Yeah, I really
Like, I
like
don't
when
think-
games have an insanity meter. I believe the Amnesia game was the first one to implement that, if not one
Probably.
of. But essentially, like, the more you look around or the more you sprint or something, or the more you see the monster, like your insanity starts depleting, and that's sort of your health bar, so to speak. I really like that shit because it forces you to like try to remain calm, and like if you were actually in that situation, that's probably how it would go. You'd probably go fucking insane at like
Yeah.
the end of the day or something. All right,
Yeah.
so new topic or
Yeah, new
Yep.
topic. That was a long one.
yeah, that was a long one. All right,
We stretch out.
let's
topics.
break up the fucking horror with Hyrule Warriors. Let's talk about Super Saiyan 3 Ganondorf. Oh my god,
He
yo, I
smashing that.
I
sword.
said I was like, yo, Ganon better be announced, no. And then when he pops up, my god, Ganon, holy shit. All right. Dynasty Warriors in itself, I was never too much of a big fan of. It's an okay game to play every now and again. I'll occasionally hop on and slay massive amounts of enemies, whatever. Legend of Zelda seems to put its Legend of Zelda spin on it. Hyrule Warriors seems to put the Zelda spin where you get these special items, where you get to fight these really cool looking bosses and stuff like that.
Don't forget cutting grass.
Cutting grass, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that. But I think the way that they're putting the spin on Dynasty Warriors, this I think changes it enough to the point where I might actually enjoy this game a lot more than your standard Dynasty Warriors. What I was sort of assuming this game was going to be was literally Dynasty Warriors with a Legend of Zelda skin, but no, they're actually implementing some pretty cool features into there that I'm excited for it. I'm on board for Hyrule Warriors. Before this Nintendo Direct showed up, I was like, I might get it whenever or whatever. But, assuming, of course, there's nothing else releasing around the same time, this might be a day one pickup for me because this looks fucking awesome.
Yeah. I really liked, by the way, speaking of Ganondorf, I think we can all appreciate how his design is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's actually very reminiscent of Demise, who, for you who don't know, is like the main antagonist from Skyward Sword, because, there's like a whole story involved. But basically, the design is similar. And I actually hope that he is an alternate costume for Ganon, since, both Link and Zelda have the Skyward Sword costumes. It'd be really cool if Ganon could have one and it be Demise. But I mean, the reveal was really cool. The gameplay and his moveset looks pretty damn interesting. The way he kicks the chest open is just
Oh
fucking
my
badass.
god! Hey, you talk shit, boy! Get the fuck
Kicks it
over,
open
bitch!
like a man.
Seriously.
So,
Yeah, seriously,
yeah.
Link is like, he's just like, open the fuck up, bitch!
Yeah.
All I
So
want.
that was awesome. And as for Hyrule Warriors as a whole, I think most people know that a lot of people will probably be disappointed with the game.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people aren't aware of what Dynasty Warriors is. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I've ever played a Dynasty Warriors game, so I'm not really sure if I'll enjoy the gameplay necessarily. But I mean, at least I know what I'm getting into. Like I know
Yeah.
I'm not expecting a Zelda game. And I'm still getting it because I mean it looks pretty damn fun. And just on another note, I actually think it's really cool that Nintendo is doing these spin-offs. It's a good sign, I think, that Nintendo is comfortable enough to like lend their most famous IPs to other developers. I mean, obviously they've done it occasionally in the past, but this is probably the most jarring spin-off that actually features a lot of the main, well, obviously a lot of the main characters. It has pretty much anyone that you could think of. And I'm happy that it's getting made, and I'll probably pick it up for sure.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe with enough success, this could actually become like a spin-off series.
Yeah.
Hyrule
Maybe.
Warriors, at the very least, will be a game that I think most Wii U owners will pick up eventually.
Yeah.
It might not be like that day one pickup, but it'll be that game that you're eventually gonna get it.
Right. And I mean,
want.
I don't know how well it'll do like critically. I don't know how other Dynasty Warriors do in general. Like I'm expecting, reviews to go in between the the 7s, maybe the 8s, I guess. I mean, that's just me.
Really, with Dynasty Warriors, it's
Assuming.
you either like Dynasty Warriors or you don't.
Right.
And most
Because, I mean,
Dynasty Warriors
it's an
are
all gameplay
right.
sort of thing. But I still think it'll be a pretty damn solid and ultimately a rather fun game. Like I'm the sort of guy that basically, as long as the gameplay is solid, I can deal with. I'll enjoy the other aspects. I mean, the gameplay is not necessarily what I find the most important nowadays. It's story, but the gameplay still needs to be really solid. However, some games live only off their gameplay, and of course, this is one of those cases. And if the gameplay is good enough for me to actually, play the entire game, then it's because I really enjoy the gameplay, and hopefully this will be the case.
All they need to do is give Ganon a Wind Waker skin, and that's I will buy the game twice.
Yeah.
Like, please.
Pre-order bonus with fucking GameStop, bitch. Actually,
like imagine him in that robe swinging those swords around, like
the katanas, man.
But the skins actually look really fucking cool too. Like I'm down
all
for
of
that.
them for everyone, honestly.
All right. Well, that was Hyrule Warriors. Next topic.
Yeah.
All right. So, speaking of the pre-orders, GameStop is overhauling their trade-in system, and this actually starts very soon, August 18th. So what's going to happen is there will be no more trade-in bonuses for pre-ordering games. So before, you would get like an extra 5, 10, 20% extra towards your trade-in bonus if you slap down a pre-order on an upcoming game. So let's say you're trading in some whatever fucking game, you would get 20% extra trade-in bonus for slapping down about $5 onto that game. There was that. There's going to be no more of that. Also, what is very interesting, and I think is going to be insane, is 20% increase across all trade-ins. So if you're a Power Up Pro member, that means you're getting an extra 30% of, if you were to trade in now, you would get an extra 30% for your trade-ins. Now, that's kind of insane. What do you guys have to say about this?
I mean, I'm not that much of a GameStop user. I mean, there was like only one GameStop store over here, and it was at a mall that I never went to, so I basically never go to GameStop. But I mean, regardless, I'm glad they're doing it because at this point, GameStop needs to stay competitive. I guess obviously they have a lot of competition, especially with digital, and obviously they need, and I mean they are definitely to a degree altering their business practices and whatnot to remain competitive in such a market. And I mean, I'm glad they're doing that. Obviously, it's like it's an easy joke to make fun of GameStop because of the whole way they handle trading. So I mean, seeing some changes that will hopefully benefit the customer is obviously a very good thing.
Yeah. I just like Omni barely ever go to GameStop because I have a PC. I don't really need to go there. If I am buying a game that is for Xbox or whatever, I would most of the time go to Amazon because I cannot be asked to go to GameStop. Honestly, I'm one of those people. But for trade-ins, I would say it's really good that it's actually going to be increased for the price. I mean, as I said, I don't think that pre-orders are a good thing. And honestly, if there's a game that you're gonna get for trading in your games, I think that it should be a game that's already out. It's a game that you know that you want. And yeah, it's pretty much it. I honestly just don't think that it's a good thing that it people would use the games that they trade in to pre-order new ones that they're probably gonna end up trading in as well.
I mean, for me, I'm the opposite of both of you. I go to GameStop a lot. So for me, obviously, this is a big thing because I'll stockpile games and then I'll go trade in. I'm not these fucking people that sit there with their Uncharted 2 in 2014 and go in there and expect to get anything out of it. Like I think the people that really do criticize GameStop's trade-in values are the people that are trying to trade in these very old games. And I will say, if a game is about a year, maybe even 2 years old, you're probably going to get ripped off on it because the chances are they're selling it for 20, maybe 25, whatever, and they'll give you probably less than 10 for it. But I think their trade-in values on newer games are very fair in my opinion. I got 40 something bucks, or what, actually it was close to 50, because I trade in games when they're doing bonuses, like trade in, you get extra 50%, whatever. When you trade in any video game, or sometimes they'll do trade in 7 games and you get an extra 30 bucks to your trade in bonus. That's when I trade in games. I don't go there on a random day and I'm like, here, just give me whatever you can for these. I sort of plan this shit out. So I get the maximum amount that I can for my game. So like when I traded in Super Mario 3D World some time ago, I got like literally 48 bucks for it. And I think that's more than fair. The game's selling for 60, used is selling for 55. So I think that was a fair price. I didn't feel ripped off at all. Obviously, there have been times where I've traded in games. I'm like, wow, that's really all I got for this game or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was my decision to trade in that game. I'm not gonna. That is just like the stupidest thing of all fucking time, to blame GameStop for giving you nothing for your games when you're giving them the games anyway. Like, it's your fault for getting ripped off, you fucking dingus. Like, how are you going to blame GameStop? If you had an opportunity, if you're a business and you have an opportunity to make the maximum amount of money possible, and people are still going to sit there and give you what you want to just give them that money or whatever, you'd be an idiot to not do it. The best way to vote with anything on a video game, business practices or anything, is with your wallet. If you don't like it, don't buy into it. It's as simple as that. So if you want to sell your games, eBay, Craigslist, forums, Reddit, whatever the fuck you need to do to sell your games for what you think they're deserved for. Other than that, you have no right to complain because you're sitting there trading in your games anyway. For me, I'm very happy with my GameStop experiences. I'm a regular. I go in there. They don't bullshit me. They don't try to say fucking pre-order this, pre-order that. I'll suck your dick if you slap down a pre-order. They don't pull that shit on me. I'm a regular. They know I know my shit. They know that I go in there predetermined with whatever I want to get. I'm just that it pays off to be a regular there. But I will say, if you're not a regular, if you're a little bit younger, or if you're a mom, be fucking careful, especially if you're a mother. They will fucking try to rip you off. I will guarantee that.
I just wanted to mention that I'm sure we have so many moms watching the podcast.
Yeah, seriously.
That's like 50%.
Holla at your boy. I'll go to
of our
GameStop
fanbase.
with you, girl. I'll be like, yo, what's good? This is my MILF over here. Don't try to backstab her, you know what I'm saying? No, but seriously though, at the end of the day, it's your own fault if you're getting ripped off by GameStop. There are other ways to sell your game. If you're complaining about that, then just don't do it. It's as simple as that.
Guys, I'm going to bring my Fallout 4 normal edition from the Xbox 360 that I got 6 years ago. And I'm going to bring it in and hope for $20, even though the game sells for 3 cents.
And the last topic of the night. There is a possibility of a PlayStation 4 price drop. This could put a nail in the Xbox One. So what do you guys think about a possible PS4 price drop? Maybe drop it to like $350 or something.
I mean, obviously, for us as consumers, it's a good thing, obviously. I've been like, I probably won't do it, but I mean, I actually pondered getting a PS4 with the Last of Us Remastered bundle coming out now. I mean, at least it made me want to get it because, the thing about the PS4 is that I don't think it still has a particularly solid library that's worth getting.
Really.
But it's slowly starting to get some good titles in there, and obviously a price drop would be even more alluring. That said, I mean, I've already said it before, I'm probably waiting for the slim version. I mean, I don't know if I'll actually be able to resist that long. I mean, I want to, but I don't know if I'll be able to do it. But the reason I'm saying that is because obviously by the time that's released, there will be a lot of games available for the system. Plus, it'll be cheaper. probably have a bigger, a bigger hard drive, services like PlayStation Now and Plus will be even more ironed out. And on top of that, the Slim models are usually more reliable and suffer less from hardware issues or whatever. So I mean, again, in theory, I want to wait for one. I'll see if I can actually resist getting one in the meantime if too many good games start coming out. But since that's unfortunately not the case, I'll probably still wait a bit.
For me, it's kind of like there has to be like that one game that like puts the nail in the coffin. Like, okay, I'm getting a PS4 because it's like I there's that one game that when it comes out, I'm gonna need a PS4 by that time. Just like I'm gonna need a PS3 for Persona 5. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 is probably gonna be that game that I'm gonna be like, okay, yeah, I need a PS4 for this time. And since that's still we don't know when it's coming out, at what time of year, what year it's coming out, I'm still able to not get a PS4 for right now, and hopefully a slim version will come out by the time Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. Maybe a bundle with Kingdom Hearts 3, maybe a
Yeah, that'll definitely be a bundle.
yeah. We can only hope.
Actually,
But
it's not exclusive, so it might not be. But
Yeah. I mean, they had like GTA 5 bundles though, so.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, if it's a price drop, I'll be really happy because obviously I'm gonna buy one, so I kind of don't want to spend that much money. But if they're really trying to like knock down the Xbox One, I don't think a price drop's really gonna do it that much. Like, yes, a price drop, like it got them the really good running start because the Xbox One was $100 more back when they included the Kinect, and now that they don't include the Kinect, now they're somewhat on equal playing fields. Although the PS4 already has some titles that are a lot better than the ones on the Xbox One, like Killer Instinct and Sunset Overdrive are the only games on Xbox One that I can really think of that I
Master
would
Chief
really want,
Collection, bitch.
as of right now.
Nah, son. Don't even say it. Don't even say it, Sosi. Shut the fuck up. Don't even say it. I don't want to hear. I'm not even that interested in it. I'll fucking kill you. Like, just don't even. For me, as somebody that already has a PS4, I don't really give a shit if it gets a price drop. I kind of hope that it does, so that way, my friends who are plebeians and don't own one yet can actually finally get one. So that way, I'm not sitting here by myself, fucking playing my PlayStation 4, like slapping myself in the face. Not that there's really anything to play cooperatively on the PS4 anyway, but still, I think the price drop will be just overall better. Will this put a nail in the Xbox One? Who knows? It'll definitely hurt it because the sales differences right now, I actually wrote them down right here. The PS4 so far has sold 8.7 million units, while the Xbox One is sitting at 5 million, around there. So the PS4 has sold 3 more million and then some. Actually almost 4 million more than the Xbox One. So those are pretty substantial numbers. I honestly think a price drop would severely hurt the Xbox One because you look at it right now, they're releasing that bundle, or I guess the lack of a bundle with the Xbox One without a Kinect, which is the one I'll probably be buying once I do get an Xbox One. But they're releasing that, and then they've even got special editions with the Xbox One bundles, like there's a Madden 15 bundle, again still for $400, and then there's a Sunset Overdrive bundle which comes with a limited edition white Xbox One, so you're essentially getting Sunset Overdrive for free if you get your Xbox One. However, the PS4 in terms of the media has been received a lot more well than the Xbox One. In terms of the community of gamers, the PS4 has been held up to this higher standard than the Xbox One, when in reality, they're not all too much different. But you can't just escape what's been talked about in the media. And the fact of the matter is that in the media, the PlayStation 4 is winning. Whether or not you like your Xbox One more than your PS4, whether you're an Xbox or PS4 guy, you can't really deny the fact that the PS4 is on top of the Wii U, obviously, and the Xbox One right now. You can't do anything about that. A price drop from Sony, I think, would be a smart move. Now, they're not going to make as much, obviously, initially with their initial PS4 sales, but the incentive, sometimes you have to take a risk, sometimes you have to knock down your opponent a little bit more. Not necessarily just because you're in the lead doesn't mean you keep running at the same pace, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you throw down a banana, watch your enemy slip a little bit, that'll propel your lead even further. Now, obviously, this could potentially backfire, and maybe it won't increase PS4 sales at all, and maybe the way that it keeps going, it just keeps going the way it is. Eventually it'll get to a point where Sony is losing out because they're selling their console for however much cheaper than the Xbox Ones are selling. If it continues down this road, Sony might end up with more units sold but less money, so it could go down that road. But at the end of the day, though, I think that this could be a strong power move for Sony, and I don't know how Microsoft would react to that.
Yeah,
Right.
Even
I just like to mention that, I mean, even though, I mean, the Sony does have the advantage here, and I mean, even if they were to do a price drop and were to get, I mean, a substantial advantage for that, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not even a full year into the
Right.
PS4 and the Xbox One's life cycle. And I mean, taking into account how things went with the last generation, where, you know, the PS3 basically did like, you know, a turnaround towards the end of the generation. You know, obviously it's still way too early to be calling out, you know, who will sell the most, who will win the generation, if there's even such a thing.
Exactly.
But I mean, yeah, as of right now, the PlayStation is definitely in the lead for, you know, a lot of very valid reasons. And I mean, I'm personally a more of a Sony fan anyways. I mean, I never owned like either the original Xbox or the 360 because there are a few exclusives in it that even to this day I'd find worth getting. This isn't to say that, I mean, if Microsoft came out with something that I really wanted, I mean, I wouldn't ponder it. But regardless, I mean, the console I'm getting out of the two is almost certainly the PS4.
Mhm.
So for me, it wouldn't make so much of a difference. It'd just be, you know, a nice benefit, since obviously I'd have to part with less money.
Yeah.
yeah, I would say the PS4 would do really well with a price drop as well. Like I don't think that it would kill the Xbox One or like put the final nail in the coffin, but unlike the Xbox One, the PS4 has a lot more exclusives lined up and already announced, and like they already are confirmed to actually be coming out and everything. Little Big Planet, for obviously, even though it's not for me, it's a big thing for a lot of people because a lot of people do love Little Big Planet. That's why there's another one coming out. So like a lot of the games that are coming out for PS4, along with that being less than the Xbox One, I think will do really well for Sony. So they're already
Yeah.
doing well, but they can do better.
Yeah, it's interesting how Omni was saying how the console sort of flipped, because at the beginning of the generation, like I came up from the PS2 and I always wanted a PlayStation 3. However, at that time the PlayStation 3 was literally twice the price of an Xbox 360. So
And it
I
came out later.
yeah, I had to settle for a 360. I didn't get them on launch anyway. I got them like a few years late or something. But regardless, I got a 360 before a PS3 because the PS3 just was stupidly expensive back then. But I had my 360 and I was 360, you know, I would die on the fucking cross to protect the 360 and say that the 360 was better than PS3 in every single regard. And for a while, it kind of was. The PS3 didn't really have anything. I'd say what really propelled the PS3 was the exclusives it started getting around 2009. I think that's when Uncharted 2 came out, when Heavy Rain came out. Like that is really when I think it started, that shift started, because the multiplayer games were not as prevalent. Like COD 4 was obviously dying down. Modern Warfare 2, I believe, came out around that time. So obviously that was incredibly huge. But that was sort of the only real multiplayer game. And I think the multiplayer games strived more on Xbox because Xbox's infrastructure is just better. You can't deny it. At least for the beginning of the whole generation, the Xbox Live was just better than PSN, hands down. But I absolutely flipped. Like I was all for Microsoft, and now I'm just sort of. I mean, I went to all Sony there for a little bit, but now I'm just like in between. You know, whatever game I want to play, I'll just play it on whatever console. Doesn't matter to me. But I would be lying if I didn't say that you know, the PS3 is my preferred console out of the two now, especially with all the exclusives and things like that. I just really think that the PS3 is just a better console than the Xbox One in terms of its library of games. Personally, especially the way the marketplaces are handled, I think PSN is a lot more clean looking, and I think it's a lot better than the Xbox Live marketplace. And I also think that the quality of content on the stores respectively is superior on PSN, because I feel like they run better sales and they just have more games that I want to play, even if those games I want to play are PS1 and PS2 games. That's that backwards compatibility. That's what Sony gets for being in the game for so long. They have the option to offer you all the games you used to love as a kid and stuff like that. And it really does help, and it helps in the long run with the PS3. And I totally flipped on that. So again, I turned into, I guess, a Sony pony. My Little
That
Pony.
is not a term I had ever heard.
No,
You
I
never heard of
actually
Sony
remember.
Pony?
No, people
No.
actually like used to really call people Sony Pony. Like when back when Omega was talking about when the shift started to happen, a lot
Yeah.
of people started like turning into PS3 guys, and a lot of the people who loved Xbox to death would call them Sony Ponies, which
That's
I still hate that word because it's really dumb, but
All right. Do you guys have anything else to say about the Xbox One versus PS4 debate or anything like that? Or are we ready to wrap up?
just enjoy your games, people. Don't
Yes.
focus on console wars. Make
wanna let
love,
you
not
know
war.
that the Wii U
That's
is
hot.
technically right now outselling the Xbox One, which is
Wait, is it?
it has more sales. It's
No
selling like
way.
$1.5 million more. Yeah.
Get the
6.8
fuck-
million on the Wii U, 5 million on. It's been out
Nice.
for like
It's
a
been
year
out
or two
for-
more.
yeah, it's
so-
been-
Oh, all right,
yeah.
all right. I thought you meant like,
but no, not right now. But
okay, I was about to
it's
say,
still,
what the
like it still
fuck?
hasn't surpassed the Wii U yet. The Wii U has 6.8 million and Xbox has 5 million
Yeah.
right now. So
Ah,
and Vita had 8.6 million.
Yeah.
That's
I just
something
want
that has no games.
Well, to be fair, all three consoles sort of suffer from the same issue. I
Yeah.
mean, neither of them have that many great titles out there.
the Wii
as
U
of right
definitely
now.
has the strongest library,
yeah, I
though,
mean,
obviously.
which it should, being out for a fucking year before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I just wanted to mention that Uncharted 2 and that whole era was probably when the shift started happening, and I just wanted to mention that I really think that Naughty Dog is like Sony is so goddamn lucky to have Naughty
Yes.
Dog because
Hell yeah.
they're like one of the best developers in the industry, and I mean one of the most impactful ones from the past
Yeah.
generation. Probably the most, I mean, without a doubt, the most if you're taking into account like exclusive ones. Because I mean, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but nearly, made the whole shift happen. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, with recently The Last of Us, I mean, a lot of people consider that the game of the past generation, like
Yeah.
the swan song of the entire generation. So Naughty Dog is great.
I'd say Naughty Dog and Alice, they're the gods. And Alice honestly doesn't do anything with Xbox. All their shit is on Nintendo or Sony consoles. So
Yeah.
rest in peace, Xbox. But yeah.
They just don't care.
And by all of this shit, I meant more of the JRPG kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
the Shin Megami games in particular, like the Devil Survivor series is Nintendo DS, 3DS, whatever, and then Persona. How you doing, girl? That's a PS3 right there. So
Yeah.
that's that. All right, guys,
That is it.
are we done?
Yeah, I think we're
I
done.
suppose.
All right, that was episode 2 of the New Game Plus beta podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it very much. We definitely had a great time, talking for hours for you guys. So please feel free to leave a like rating, subscribe,
Yeah, just,
comment, whatever.
If you feeling like
Love
leaving
us.
the like button,
All right,
Oh,
so do you guys have anything to part with for the people out there?
hope you enjoyed this
Enjoy our
segment.
beautiful faces and enjoy it.
Thank you for watching. This has been your friendly neighbor Omega Pro, and we will see you on the next episode of New Game Plus Podcast Beta Podcast. New Game Plus Episode 3 Beta Podcast.
Beta.
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 Pre-order for free DLC.